Well, welcome to our talk studio. Really happy to have with us, as always, Paul Mwangi, and welcoming into studio for the first time on this particular show, Joseph Magud. But we have spoken and interviewed and done all kinds of things during elections and otherwise, so it's a great pleasure to have you here in studio with us. Our apologies from David Makali, who was called away and was unable to be with us today, but it's a great pleasure to have you two. Looking at today, of course, Uhuru Kenyatta. Let's start with the pros. Paul.
One, I think the most obvious advantage that Uhuru Kenyatta has in this race is that he has deep pockets. He's fabulously wealthy, as according to Forbes. Fabulously wealthy. His family is also fabulously wealthy. And of course, he has friends and relatives who are equally wealthy. So if money is the fuel of politics, then Uhuru Kenyatta has an oil well. So I think he would be the candidate with the deepest pockets in this race. Secondly, despite that privilege, he has a common man's touch. He's able to build a kind of a camaraderie among the people he deals with and like appear as one of the guys, so that people who deal with him never really see the privilege and the wealth that he controls. Thirdly, he's a very good orator. He's got very good oratory skills, and he's able to communicate well with people. And fourthly, I see him as very adaptable. And that was clear, for instance, when Kenyatta took him, and when Moi took him and decided to make him the presidential candidate. And he had to adjust within the very few months from somebody who had nothing to do with politics and to being a presidential candidate. And he adapted to it rather well. And I think he would be capable of adapting to very many challenges that would come to him in a campaign.
Okay, we come to you, Joseph.
Yes, the pros actually, I think the very fact that he has had to deshackle and demanako himself from the tag that, he is Moi's project, and, and that therefore he had to hang on Moi's apron strings for his political survival. The very fact that he's been able to deshackle himself from that and has basically, pulled himself by his own bootstraps, actually, since he was floored by Kibaki in 2002. And so he's been able to basically redefine and redirect his political footsteps as a key political player. And over time, he's been able to nurture and foster, a demeanor and, political gravitas as a key political player in the country. Two, I think you'd almost say that, the name Kenyatta is magical. It's a brand by itself. It's seductive.
So it still has weight. It has power.
It has power by itself. As a matter of fact, in political science, we normally say that it gives him what we'd call a soft power. The attractability, the approachability, and the appeal and the influence. And basically, that is what Uhuru seems to be enjoying. He rides on that name. And this tends to basically resonate in Central Province and across the country. The name Kenyatta still has the appeal. But still it has its own flip side, of course, yeah.
And we are coming to the cons, since you had started, perhaps, so I'll continue with you, Joseph. Let's look at the cons now.
I think you'd also say that, he also enjoys he's going to be riding on the youth agenda. He's relatively young, and he's going to be attempting to appeal to the young folks. Given the fact that, Julie, this country is constituted of 65% of young folks, and so this is one area that Uhuru Kenyatta is going to be focused on as one of his key platforms in an attempt to basically reach to the young folks.
Do you think he can? Is it the image that he cuts? Is it a pro or a con when it comes to the young people in the country?
I think basically he's been able. One thing about Uhuru Kenyatta is, through his affability and amiability and geniality, he's able to basically cut across. He is one guy you'd almost say he's peerless, actually, and he's been able to appeal to young folks. Each speech you hear him talk in his campaigns, he tends to basically reach out to young folks, and he's been able to, in the recent past year, has been attempting to basically craft an agenda that resonates well with young folks.
Do you have cons, because that was a pro?
The cons basically is is the very fact that, you know, the Hague question is something that, you know, is going to gum up his works. It's a millstone actually around his neck. And that is a reality. In as much as we know that, you know, the ICC mandarins have pointed out that even if the case is going to go to the next level, you know, it's not going to affect their, you know, their candidature. And, you know, much as that is going to be the case, it's going to basically bog them quagmire.
Right.
As quagmire their campaign, because they don't have...
It still is an issue, it still is a problem they're dealing with.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's come to the cons, Paul.
I would add three things to the destruction of ICC and the fact that, well, all the other candidates will just be concentrating on being president. He's going to be distracted on one hand, trying to deal with a case where he's literally fighting for his life, and also trying to do the presidential campaign. But I see three other problems that he has. One, he's not very energetic. In politics, politically...
Not as much as Ruto. Last week we said Ruto has energy, he's out there.
Uhuru Kenyatta is not very energetic. And he's in his campaign in 2002, where he had to run the marathon with Moi. And they went for so long that towards the end of his campaign almost literally collapsed, because Moi literally burnt him out. And he does the short run. And in this war, he's going to have to start early. So he will have to
call it a war.
so in this competition. Yes. So I don't know whether he'll be able to come up with the energy to do that long stretch. Okay. Secondly, he doesn't have a well-defined political ideology. And it's very difficult to tell his stand on democracy, his stand on human rights, on economics, on social welfare. And we read his political philosophy from the people he associates with. They seem to be the ones who convey what he's thinking. That has become a problem recently on the issue of devolution, because the position that Treasury has taken on devolution appears as if Treasury is trying to frustrate devolution. And then recently we had also MPs associated with Uhuru Kenyatta saying that they are going to amend the constitution to remove the Senate, again appearing as if they want to frustrate devolution. Right. But devolution in some regions in this country is
key. It's critical.
So key. It is so critical that I think there are places where his political support will simply be wiped out by the fact of what is appearing to be the political position that he is taking. And knowing that if he became president, then he will become a real threat to the devolution. The third thing I see, which is a problem to him, is accessibility. That politicians at that stage, of course, have to get political assistance to do your bidding, and you're talking to other people. But while other politicians try to have a very wide and varied array of political assistance, Uhuru Kenyatta seems to rely more on very close friends and relatives. And what happens then is that when people come to his political field, they'll feel left out, because what should be a public political initiative, a political affair, starts looking like it's a private thing. And that will alienate people from him. And they might not be doing it with malice. Maybe it's a question of being overprotective. But and that happened in 2002. In his campaign in 2002, we were kind of hijacked by his friends and relatives. Okay. And people ran away and went to NAC.
So who do you surround yourself with? Do you have teams of professionals working? Do you have key advisors right across the board, not just in a small group around?
Yes, and varied in terms of socially varied from everywhere. Then, so that because people want to own you. Right. But if they come and they feel that they cannot own you, then they will go elsewhere.
Okay, Joseph, I see you wanted to come in.
Obviously, another con for Uhuru Kenyatta is the very fact that Kibaki is going to be leaving office in a short while. Kenyans voted for him for 5 years, and they gave him another 5 years, 10 solid years, and he's going to be leaving office in a short while. And the very fact that Uhuru comes from Kibaki's backyard is going to basically gum up his works, in the sense that Kenyans are going to be saying, other communities would be feeling that they're basically overstretching their generosity towards one community. Yet, other communities have never tested the presidency, and so these are some of the realities.
That is an issue on the ground.
It's going to be an issue. It's going to be an issue.
I think Mutahi Ngunyi had mentioned that as well in there.
And so, but that does not, however, basically deter Uhuru Kenyatta from pushing his agenda. I think what he's going to do basically is, burn the midnight oil and basically push the envelope and talk to Kenya in as far as basically telling Kenyans, see me as a Kenyan, but not one from the Kikuyu nation.
Right. What do I have to offer? What am I promising?
This is my agenda. This is my agenda, and my agenda is pan-Kenyan. It's not from one region. Number two, as a con, Julie, is also the very fact that the politics of the Kenyatta dynasty is going to crop in. We have veritable candidates such as, Mother Karua and Peter Ken from Central Province, who obviously are going to be raising a lot of hell and stating the fact that the leadership basically should not be circumscribed in one family, and that it's not an exclusive club. And these are some of the issues they're going to be raising in a bid to gum up Uhuru's chances, especially in the context of Central Kenya or the larger Mount Kenya.
So he definitely can't be a pampered prince in this race. It's going to be a tough one. What do you rate him in the game right now, looking at all the players? Give us your score out of 10, and I start with you, Paul.
First, my score is determined by two things. One, so far the person I have scored highest among the Group 7 members is Kalonzo Musyoka. But I still think that Uhuru's chances are much better than Kalonzo Musyoka's. And I think that within the group of G7, even if they went for a joint nomination, he's the one who is most likely going to take that ticket. And secondly, that even if they did not, then there was a runoff, he's the one who is most likely to be the candidate that would go for the runoff. And for that, I would give him an 8.
An 8?
I would give him an 8.
Oh my goodness.
I think Paul's scale is so inflated. I think I should give him 6.
That's still pretty high.
Yeah, I'm still going to give him 6,
yes.
Fundamentally because he comes from a voter-rich, region, which basically gives him a head start, actually, in as far as other presidential candidates are concerned, and so he enjoys that. Before he basically reaches the rest of the country, he has better chances. 6, I think, would suffice. Yeah.
Well, very interesting, gentlemen. Thank you very much. At this point, I will release the poll result as it stands right now. Of course, it might change, and you need to send your SMS in and tell us, would you vote for Uhuru Kenyatta as president? Right now, the poll result stands at 78% yes, 22% no. Please keep your thoughts coming in. 2442 is the number. Still so much more coming up on Sunday Live. Do stay with us. Big thank you to our analysts for being with us again this week.
Appreciate it. Yeah.